I'm Tanya Fox, and you're listening to Fox Talks Business Podcast. I started my career in the corporate world, but always played to my own tune and loved to think outside of the box. This didn't always serve me well with the bosses, so I made the decision to become an entrepreneur. And that little seed of entrepreneurial curiosity continued to grow as I branched out into retail, service, and franchise businesses. Now, I have been fortunate to have amazing successes in the last 2 decades, but they did not come without some really big failures and even bigger lessons learned. And that's why I started this podcast, not just to share the failures, but to show you how you can turn every failure into a success. We're going to hear from some amazing humans from around the world that are going to share their stories of the good, the bad, and the motivational entrepreneurial life has to offer. After all, life is too short to make all of the mistakes yourself, so why not learn from each other? And of course, we're going to have some fun, because as I always say, well, you know what? I'll tell you that at the end of the episode. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, Andrew. I'm so excited to have you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So, for those of you that don't know, Andrew actually started in the film industry. So, take us a little bit through the journey of how you got from film industry to helping entrepreneurs.
Wow, yeah, it's a big journey. I probably can't cover it all in the following hour, or yeah, I might bore people. But yeah, I was working in the film industry at quite a high level, working on big feature films and commercials. But I got to a point in my life um, where the life work balance wasn't great for me. The money was pretty good, but I never knew what time I was coming home at, or and that could be not just time or day. Like I might go to work on a Monday and not come back till Wednesday. So
Right.
it's not really compatible with a family life, really. So that was one reason I jumped, is a change of lifestyle. The other reason was my last role in the film industry. I had a day job, like a working consultancy type role, I suppose, on big films and commercials. Um, but I was also director of the business, and I saw within our business how much it was a struggle to grow the business. I was a minority director, so I didn't have a huge amount of power. In fact, very, very little power inside the business. But the guys who did were trying to do their best, but they met many challenges along the way. And eventually, what happened is the business fell over. They just had to go. They had to cut their losses and go. This isn't working. We're going to close the shop, which meant a lot of people losing their jobs. I got my redundancy notice in the mail, um, and yeah, so that was a big catalyst, and that was kind of combined with the need to change my work-life balance. And at that point, I suppose I just decided I was going to do something new, rather than what I could have done. I suppose would have been to kind of go into another role in the film industry, or do like a phoenix, which is kind of where you set your business on fire, but then it springs up somewhere else, kind of
Right.
really under a new name. So you just kind of carry on. So that could have been a choice, but I was just like, is this how I want to live for the rest of my life? Like working so hard, not having time for friends and family. These things really are starting to matter to me more and more, and I'm not such a career obsessed person as I was when I was 21. The balance is wrong. So yeah, I look to change, and that's when the experience want me wanting to change, and the experience I'd had with the business not working, maybe like go, actually I want to help other businesses and business owners succeed with their businesses and help them overcome their challenges.
I love that. And I think, it's so true that I think so many people get stuck in that mindset of, well, this is just what I do. So we'll just, move on to the next one and see how it works. But I love what you said, because I find that that was true with me too. When I was younger, of course, working the insane hours wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, I do find that the older you get, the more that you're like, I don't know if I want this to be my life. Like, but we do spend so much of our time at work. So let's switch a little bit and talk about how how you help businesses. So what is your main focus? Like, what is the main thing that you see in your line of work that people are really struggling with being an entrepreneur in their businesses?
Well, I can tell you right now what one of the biggest challenges right now is that teams are scattered to the wind, right? And this might have been something some entrepreneurs were dealing with anyway, because they had remote teams. My part of my team, I've got people in Australia, I've got people in Portugal, people in Italy, and all over the place. So I'm kind of used to it. But now we're going through this Corona crisis, and I think that this has been forced upon everyone. So what's the difference between your assistant being 5 miles down the road or 100 miles down the road? If you have to communicate by Zoom, there's no
Right.
difference, right?
But I think that there's a lot of people that still struggle with that. Because I know that's something that I struggled with too, right? You're used to, especially if you're used to having people face to face or even in the same town as you or same district as you. So what are some of the ways that, that they can bridge that gap that everybody is feeling right now?
Well, I think it's about engaging your team members, and I think there's two, and this is where it comes into my core focus, really. I think that the key is to engage your team members and treat them as grown-up stakeholders in the business rather than operating your business in such an authoritarian manner. And there's generally two styles of management. There's one where it's all about you as like the king or queen of the business, and you're giving out your regal commands and everyone is doing what you say. Or there's the other version where you can actually empower your team members and let them have some degree of autonomy and start driving businesses forward and connect them more with how what they do impacts them directly, both financially and also just from a fulfillment perspective, right? Because no one wants to. Well, some people are happy just to turn up and do like a 9 to 5. They just want to do the job and go home, and that's cool. But other people want more than that. So I think inside most people's teams, there's a lot more resource that you can be making more of. I mean, if you look at the assets of a business, you might think computers, cars, trucks, software, and you might think, oh, we can gain a massive boost in performance by upgrading our software to this other piece of software I've seen on Facebook or something. But actually, the big upgrade you could make to performance is upgrading your team's performance. But a lot of that might start with you as the owner in terms of opening yourself up to letting that performance happen.
And I think I want to touch on that a little bit more because I think what is happening a lot, especially when businesses are smaller, like, when they don't, like, say they don't really have a team or it's a very small team and they're looking to expand, is not having that DIY attitude. So, what are some of the tips that you can give to help entrepreneurs sort of break through that feeling of it's just easier if I do it myself, or I need to do it so it's done right, and sort of making that trend to relinquishing some of that king and queen feeling of having to, organize the castle.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good point about the DIY, and I think that's one of the what I call a dark force. And I think there's like three dark forces which really push entrepreneurs to work too hard, as particularly business owners to work too hard and not have time for the other things in life they care about. I think what you could do is start being conscious of the real world impact of DIY, and sit down with a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle, and on one side write the consequences of DIY, just how it bites you. So the fact that because you've decided to do all of the email campaign yourself, let's say you're sat at your desk till 9, right? And that's annoying, being sat at your desk till 9 when you wanted to finish at 5 or 6. Maybe that's your goal, but that's just how you get bitten. I think then what I want you to do, so write that down on the left hand side of the paper, the fact you're being bitten by having to work a bit late by doing DIY. And then on the right hand side of the paper, write down the deep consequence of being bitten, because I think it's actually the deep consequence which will drive us to change what we're doing. So actually, if you work till 9, what you might miss out on is putting your kids to bed. And that might mean from Monday to Friday, you don't see your kids because you're too busy working. So I think we need to be being conscious of these deep impacts of what we're doing, and that exercise is just a first step in being conscious, so then we can like think about, oh, this is actually hurting me at a deep level. I really need to change what's going on right now.
And I think that that's so true because I think oftentimes we don't think farther than just, what is happening today. Like we don't think going on into the future. And then you're also creating habits. Do you find by those people that continuously work those long hours, like, did you find that that's what happened to you? It just kind of became a habit that's just the way your
Yeah,
life is.
yeah, totally. And I think it's one of the interesting things with starting my business is, uh, I was obviously very conscious, having stepped away from the film industry where I'm working too much and eating too much. It's just very unhealthy. And you got in the film industry, you got high stress, high hours, lots of bad food easily available. So it's like a real unhealthy place to be. Um, and I was really conscious when I started my own business that I didn't want to work too much. But actually, when you start your own business, it's really easy to get into that trap because you feel like just one more thing to push the business forward. And what you have to realize is you have to pace yourself and just let it be that things take time. Like this week, on my whiteboard behind me, I've got three big goals that I want to accomplish this week. Above that, I've got my goals for the year, but I'm just focused on those three goals for the week. And they're quite they're not huge goals, they're quite achievable goals, and therefore I'm not forcing myself to work. I've not set myself unrealistic goals which require me to work a crazy amount of time to get them done. So I think that's a key breakthrough thing, is being a little bit more realistic about what you can do and stop putting so much pressure on yourself. And then obviously, yeah, like starting to delegate to your team, but not just delegate. It needs to be more than that, right? Because if you delegate, what happens is you give someone a checklist. You say, I want you to like build this new warehouse operation for me. You need to do it like this, blah 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 blah. You give them like 10 different steps, and then what happens is something changes on the way, or something's not quite right, or maybe the building company you said for them to use isn't available, so they have to come back to you, and it just creates yet more work for you. So we have to rethink about how we do delegation as well, and focus our delegation on outcome rather than just delegating every single step of what we want done. And that's where it comes back to empowering your team, right? You empower your team by saying, look, I trust you. You've worked for my business for a while. You're a smart person. Here's what we want to achieve. Here's a budget. You've got 6 months to make this happen. You choose how we do it. I can't wait to see how you get on. And don't worry, if you make a few mistakes on the way, that's okay.
I love that. And I think, that's such a key thing, I think, for people to learn because I did it the hard way. I did it the way you said it. I remember doing that, first starting out and being like, okay, here's the exact steps that you need to follow. Like, here's a manual almost of how to do stuff. And I found that everybody became almost robotic in what they were doing. They ended up just being a bunch of minions that were doing only what I told them, when I told them, how I told them to do it. And so I love that tip of, allowing them to sort of bloom in their area of expertise, because the investment, I think, would be more in the employees because they're more vested in how it turns out. They're more excited when it's successful. They're more willing to maybe even find solutions to the problems. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that almost allows them, the company to move farther faster because you have employees who are excited about coming up with new ideas and being innovative.
100%. I think you're right. The excitement level, people fall in love with their jobs and fall in love with what they're doing. Uh, I think what's really painful sometimes is if you've got good ideas and you're inside a business and you actually really want to help, and like the business is holding you at arm's length, for the business owner going, no, you stay over there, you stay in your box there. I've got this. When the business owner kind of actually really doesn't have it, but they're too caught up in insecurity and all these other issues that are going on that are stopping them get help. And insecurity is a big issue here, um, for business people. You know, you've decided to set up a business, and I think one of the factors in deciding to set up a business, there's many, of course, but one of them is to prove something, right? To prove to people, look, I'm the kind of person who can start from scratch and make something serious happen. And I don't need to just go and do a job. I'm bigger than that. So then it become that then kind of comes at odds with then handing the keys over to someone else, because then you feel like kind of not a complete failure, but you start to feel like a bit like a fraud, or you're not staying true to that vision of you being the independent business owner who's master of all before you. But I think what you need to realize is actually it's totally impractical long term for you to be master of all before you. And it's also not sustainable. What happens if you need to, take 2 months off work because you've got to go and help a friend or relative out? Uh, can the business carry on functioning without you? Have you built a sustainable business? If you're a serious business owner, those are the questions we need to be asking ourselves.
And I think it's true. I think we don't ask ourselves that enough because we get into that mindset of work, work, work. You know, we're going for goals, we're going for success, we're going for, whatever your goals happen to be. But we don't think farther ahead of, we don't really want to be doing this until the day we die. And that's, I think the older you get, obviously, the more you think about that. But I remember thinking, like, if I keep this up, um, I'm going to die in this chair sitting at my desk, and that's not really, what I want. And I like the other point that you made about um when we're sort of giving stuff away and when we're delegating things, that there tends to be that, that emotion or that feeling that something's going on. But I think we also end up getting into sort of like a blame game sometimes, when, especially when things aren't going right. And so let's talk a little bit about how that sort of comes to entrepreneurs, but how we can overcome that. Because especially when you have a team and something goes wrong, we always are looking for, I guess, someone to blame.
Oh, totally. I mean, this is a big hangover thing that I have from the film industry, where it's got a huge culture of blame because there's so much money involved. When you've got the first unit of a big feature film on all together, it's costing probably £150,000 or dollars a day
Oh my
for
gosh.
that unit to be there. Yeah. So if they have to do an hour's overtime or 2 hours overtime because someone's made a mistake, then people are not very happy about that.
Right.
So but that trickles down because, right, not everyone's working on a film production with £150,000. Some people are doing something with a £30,000 budget, but it's all relative because an hour's overtime is still a huge amount of money. So there's a
Right.
huge blame culture with things going wrong in the film industry and costing someone money. So people get upset because things don't work out. And often it's because of unrealistic expectations, or people haven't done their research, or don't know what they're talking about, quite frankly. And these are big and small people in the film industry, but they'll turn around and try and blame everyone else for what's happened. But because of that, so it's painful that there's a cost, that people have to work late and that more money's involved. But what's the worst thing about it is no one learns, right? Because all that's happened is a load of negative energy has been sent out into the world just to try and make someone feel a bit better in the moment. They've just reacted. And what people really need to do is respond. And they can do that by looking to move beyond blame culture and taking ownership of situations. Is having the courage to stand up and go, actually, the reason we're in this problem and we're filming, this is a real example. We're filming in like Malta during the summer solstice, which is the shortest day of the year, and a night. And I was shooting there during a night shoot, right? In Malta during a night shoot, and it's like, so they someone hadn't done the research beforehand that actually we were only going to have like 5 hours of total darkness. So if anything went wrong, there was very little slack, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, but no one actually. What happened when things went wrong? They just pointed fingers at everyone else, and it was just like, well, it's all your fault. Your fault. Well, actually, the people who planned this from the very beginning should have taken ownership of the entire situation and thought about these things up front, and should have gone, well, actually, we made a mistake. We've put all of you guys under incredible pressure, and some women as well, put you all under incredible pressure, and that's not fair. We should have done this better. And I think as leaders and business owners, we've got a duty to own the mistakes that other people in our business make, and of course we should expect other people in our business to own what they're doing as well and be responsible for what they're doing. But it all starts by you being a strong role model, and having the courage to stand up in front of your team and go, do you know what, the reason that project didn't work out is I didn't give you the right training, the right information, or we didn't do this and that. Because then that whole, but let's learn for next time. What as a team can we do better for next time? And when you have this kind of culture of actual learning and owning, right, and you get rid of the blame, people can actually learn and move forward, and you start building much better systems, much stronger teams, much more motivated team members, and people start being less scared about mistakes as well. Because of course this is what happens as well. Then people, like, if you're scared about mistakes, people duck down. They put their head below the parapet and go, actually, I can't make a leap forward in this business. I'm not prepared to put myself in the firing line, because I know what will happen. If anything goes wrong in this project, it'll come back to me, because I've been the one who was stupid enough to put my head upwards and make myself a target. And I think that's a terrible situation to be in as a business, but it happens in all too many businesses.
And I love what you're saying with that because I think it's so true. I mean, you cannot avoid mistakes, but I love how you were saying of, as the leader, take ownership of that and bring the team together. Okay, how can we learn? This didn't work. Here's why it didn't work. Now, how can we learn from this and how can we make this better? Or, how can that we make sure that this doesn't happen again? Because I think it's true. I remember I mean, I worked in government, and you made a mistake. That was it. Like, I mean, you were feeling like you were going to get brought in and rapped on the knuckles, with a ruler by the nun, like it was just, so you were terrified to take any leaps or try anything different or expand your horizon because you were so scared of the outcome, which potentially meant that you could have lost your job. So I think I love that what you said about that is like, as a leader, it's your job to give them that empowerment and let them know we're all going to make mistakes, but we're all going to fix it together.
Exactly. And also, and leaps is a good word as well. I think if you see potential in your team, and you really should see potential in your team,
Hopefully.
uh yeah, hopefully, otherwise why are they still working for you, really? Um hopefully you see potential in your team. And if you do, then you should surely want your team to leap forward in terms of what they can do. But when you leap forward, it takes a lot of courage. Like, let's say your team have never done blogging before. No one on your team's done blogging before. To put up those first few blog posts is going to take a leap of confidence, and being a bit unsure if they're a good writer. And if it goes wrong, and and maybe they make some really basic grammatical errors on the first blog post, and you shoot them, get down, and you go, "Hey Jim, that's awful. You should never write a blog post for this company ever again. You suck." If that's your attitude, then that courageous team member is going to take a massive step backwards and feel terrible, and you probably would have shot their confidence up for a long time. So actually, what we need to understand is when our team members leap forward and are brave enough to move forward and try new things and get outside of their comfort areas, we need to support their mistakes and actually say to them, it's okay that you're making mistakes, because it shows that you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, and and it shows that you're pushing yourself, and things are happening, and that's a natural part of the process. You're trying something new. When you try something new, there's going to be a few rough edges, and we just have to support that and encourage them rather than knock them down when that happens.
So with everything that sort of happened in your life and all of your experiences, it actually sort of led you to inventing a system to help people. So tell us a little bit about the GRO.W.L system that you created.
Okay, so the growl system, it's down growl like a wolf or a dog. I think space wolf. There you go. It stands for growing, working, and living smarter. That's what the abbreviation. And it's the basis of the system is the understanding that we can't separate business, work, and life. I think for too long we tried to compartmentalize those things, like your job, leave your job at the front door, leave your business at the front door. But now we truly see how our business is now inside our homes for all of us. So actually, that separation is completely gone for everyone. But they all have a massive impact. And so I think you can't go, oh, I'm going to work on life development, I'm going to work on business development. It all kind of needs to happen, and they all needs to happen together, but it also all impacts each other. Say for example you land a new business deal. Sounds great, you land 10 new installs of servers somewhere. That fantastic, lots of money for the business, but all of a sudden you've got to do a month away from home, or you've got to do another, you've got to hire a load more people. It's going to be stressful. So there's a knock on from your business success to your life and so on. So the growl system is really designed to help business owners start managing their life in a better way, being more conscious of how their business is sucking up their time and freedom in the same way a black hole does. Because I think this is what happens as a business owner, that you start being consumed by your business and not having the time that you wanted in the first place. I think for some of us, we get tired of working for bosses who can't manage the business as efficiently as we'd like, and who cause us to work longer than we like. So we decide to set up our business and strike out on our own. But then we become kind of those
That
bosses
other,
who are
yeah.
we kind of become those bosses who aren't that great at managing time and being efficient. And so we end up being stuck in kind of the same position again, except this time we're being consumed by the business that we created for ourselves. So the growl system is designed to help people. In the first instance, it's designed to help the business owner reconnect with their freedom and hobbies and the things that they want to do, and teach them how to do that. So there's a module which helps the leader reclaim their life. So the growl system is made up of a number of modules. One of them is called Leader Life Reclaim, which helps the leader reclaim their life, right? And the next one, big one, is for the team to start taking ownership of various projects and tasks in the business. Because ultimately, if you want to free yourself from being stuck inside the business, you've got to start handing over a lot more of the ownership to other people, and your team will love you for it. So that's in kind of a very big nutshell. That's what the system is about.
And I think I think it's such a key thing, especially what you said about, I think for so long people have been told, like you had said, when you come home from work, leave it at the door. And it's unrealistic. I mean, you can say that, but I think we all know in your minds you're still thinking about that stuff, and vice versa. When you go to work, if something happened in the family, you're thinking about that at work, and you can't separate the two. And I think I love that you're teaching people that that's not the way to do it, and that they both need to work together, to for them both to be successful, that they can't just stay separated.
Exactly. Because for example, if you go to bed badly, right, at the end of your time relaxing, let's say, then your next business day is not going to be as good as it should be. So even small things like how you sleep, there's all these massive knock-on effects of these areas which can't be neatly separated. Something that got me thinking a lot was the film Interstellar, and my website is called interstellarway.life, because it's kind of my this film really had a big impact on me, about how Matthew McConaughey, I hope I've said his name correctly,
Yes.
always say it
Well,
incorrectly.
I don't know, that's how I say it, so.
Okay. About how he's so busy and consumed by his mission, like, and I see the mission as being like the business. He's so being consumed on his mission that eventually, once he's finished his mission, he turns around and his daughter's grown up. And I think this is the thing that's really at stake for business owners, that you become so consumed by your business that you risk getting to the end of your business mission and turning around and seeing that the rest of your life has moved on without you being there. And so I think there's a huge amount at stake for business owners if they're not careful, that they could skip past some of the amazing beauties and joys of life. And yeah, that's Interstellar inspired me, and that kind of that whole idea of helping people not miss out on life, to reconnect with their life and have a better business life balance is a big driving force behind what I'm doing.
So you also have some free training that you offer for people. So I know that there's people listening right now kind of going, yep, that's me. Yep, do that, do that, do that. So tell us a
Okay.
little bit about where they can access this training and a little bit about what they'll find there.
Okay, so the best place to start is at my website, which is interstellarway.life. There's a few things you can access there. There's a free report that will give you your business strengths and weaknesses, but there's also a free training course which you'll find in the top menu, which will start in a much deeper way, take you through these three dark forces that actually really impact business owners and stop them having that work-life balance. And as we've already touched on, one of those dark forces is DIY, but this course takes you into the other three and really explains how they affect you and what you can actually do to overcome them.
And I think that that's what people need, right? Like we all hear it, but then they're like, that's great. Yep, that's me. But now what? So I think that that's great that you have that they can go, okay, now I can actually find a solution to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We're not just like poking the problem and going, oh, look, you've got this massive problem. Doesn't that suck? Bye. Yeah.
Good luck with that. So let's talk a little bit about one of your biggest obstacles that you had in when you were creating this business. Um, if you can think of, well, I know that there's always many, but if you can think of
Mm.
one thing that sort of when you decided to, okay, you're leaving, you're starting your own business, what was the one thing that you think, God, I wish I would have known this sooner?
I've got such a great imagination. I've got a crazy imagination, but maybe that's sometimes a bit of my enemy as well, because then I can imagine that things can happen that don't. Like I'll be, yeah, I just want to earn like 2 million a year. So all I need to do is get, 100 clients, so pay me 20 grand a year, and that's it. I've written it down on a piece of paper, therefore it will happen.
Yeah.
It's just like that.
So I have written, so it shall be.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm probably I probably believe in myself too much sometimes. Maybe. I think it's good to believe in yourself and have a really strong imagination. And they say actually, just before I say this next statement, I will caveat it by saying I'm not a genius. I'm not saying I am a genius, but they say that geniuses or high performers at least are people who really value their imagination and creativity, and that's like why people like Einstein was like so successful, because actually he really allowed his imagination and creativity to develop, so he had time to think about all the things about space and relativity and all this kind of thing. Not that I'm Einstein, just thinking about how people become high performers and creativity being a big part of that.
And I think that that's so true that so often we get stuck. And I think that's a great tip for business owners is to delve back into that creativity or even back into that excitement that you had when you first started the business and you were creating, like you had said before, creating this idea from nothing and continuing to do that because we get stuck in the day-to-day tasks and we forget to dream. We forget to be that kid that, imagines what the world could look like. Even if it doesn't turn out, I think it's still important to have those moments where you go, yeah, this is easy. Look at
Yeah,
this. I just need 10 people.
there you go. Exactly, you just write it down, but write it down and it happens. No, but But I think you're right. It is really important to step back and give yourself a moment, because otherwise I think things can become really attritional, and you just start looking for 1% or 2% gains. But guess what? The world isn't making 1%, 2% changes around you, as we've seen. There's huge shifting of sands and situations and events all the time right now. I mean, I think the next 20 years could be crazy. I think in terms of what happens. I think we went through a period when politics was kind of a bit more stable and so on. And I know let's not get into politics, but I think we're going through a situation where there's going to be more changes and uncertainty. So I think if you want to counterbalance that, maybe you need to think bigger and dream bigger. And if you think bigger and dream bigger, that's the first step to achieving big things. If you can't visualize getting to that crazy point, which is so much further forward, then you probably won't do it.
I think that's so true, right? Because you think about that, even if you're thinking, about, a movie that you watch and you go, how do people come up with this stuff, right? And it's really a lot of it is just people's imaginations. Like they're just allowing to think whatever happens to come into their head. And that's one of my favorite activities to do is to just think up things. And sometimes I go back and I read them and I'm like, this is absolutely insane. Like, what was I thinking? This doesn't even make any sense. But there's gems in, in those thoughts and in those, those brainstorming sessions. And I think that that's something that even doing with your team could be beneficial, because you just never know who has that $1 million idea, or that just that thought that all of a sudden create starts you thinking on a different path.
100%. Your team could have so many ideas that could help you embrace opportunities or overcome challenges in a better way. Why would you not use that resource? They've got different perspectives as well. Uh, yeah, like talk to your team next time you're trying to work through something. Get your team in, get them involved as well.
Yeah. And I think it's just asking that question of, what do you guys think? How do you guys think we can solve this? Because it was funny, because I was having a conversation before about, franchises, and that was one of my biggest things, is that all of a sudden I would see companies that would get so big, and then all of the decisions were made by people who weren't doing the jobs that they were making decisions on. And I was like, why are you not going to those people and saying, hey, we need to find a way to speed this up, what do you think? And meanwhile, the people that were like on the floor doing the job were like, I can tell you exactly how we can do it, and the way that you want to do it is not it.
Wow. Yeah, and you've got to have that, but also I think it's important for morale as well in your business to have those conversations and get it all out on the table, because otherwise you start sowing the seeds of resentment and friction and people thinking, "Oh, if only they'd done this or that." And actually there might be a reason that your company doesn't do this or that that you don't know about. But it's only when you all get together and have an honest, unjudgmental conversation about it that you can actually work through those ideas.
I love that. And I think that's a great tip for people, regardless of whether they have huge teams or even if they just have one person, is starting to open up those lines, of communication and allowing everybody to shine. Because I think when your team shines, you shine. It just, everything rolls up kind of
You
thing.
all you all benefit. This is it. You're all the rising tide lifts all ships, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. So, if people are like, okay, I kind of have an idea, I think I know what I want to do, but I'm going to need some help. What is the best way for them to reach out and go, okay, I can't do this alone. I need somebody to help me?
The best way you can go, there's a contact form on my website, interstellarway.life. So there's a contact button there. Hit that, answer a couple of questions, send me a message, and I'll get back to you.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. There's just so much great information and tips that I think that people need to start using. So I really appreciate your time.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on today.
So many great tips and different ways of thinking of how to engage with your team. I really want to thank Andrew for taking time to talk with me today. And I want to encourage you to head over to our website at foxtalksbusiness.ca. Just click on blogs on the left-hand side of the page. You'll see this episode and the link on where you can connect with Andrew's podcast, Interstellar Business Show. And he interviewed Jason Connolly, who we had on the show about a month ago. And Jason shares a lot of his methods and ideas for building a leadership team. So just to help to build on what we were talking on today. And he has a lot of other great episodes too for you to check out. On the blog, you're also going to find a free training course that he has offered. So the link is there, as well as where you can find him on his website and LinkedIn and learn a little bit more about his background. So no matter what you're doing today, take some time to learn how to growl and to make sure that you're having fun. Because as I always say, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?